Okie doke. So I'm going to close the door. And then if Jo turns up, she knows to come in. Right, so just take a moment to allow yourselves to sort of arrive on the mat. So today's session is about feet and support structures. So feet are obviously an incredibly important element of our yoga practice, as it's a lot of the time it's the contact that we have with the ground. And then in terms of support structures, we will be touching very gently upon the three bandha. So they're the three energetic locks that I've spoken about within traditional yoga practice. So they're very much connected, particularly the root lock, our mula band or pelvic diaphragm. So that actually does have a lot of connection with our feet and the articulation of our feet. And perhaps we wouldn't notice that so much when we're wearing shoes. And then above the mula band, the root lock, which again also is connected with the root chakra, which is our base grounding chakra in energetic terms. You've got the Uddiyana bandha, which is related to the area around the diaphragm. So this is the respiratory diaphragm. So the Uddiyana bandha is around the front of the abdomen, and it involves a sort of sucking in at the end of the exhalation. And we'll play with that slightly in dog. So you've got those two diaphragms, and then you've got the throat area, so you've got the Jaladhara bandha. So that involves slight tucking in of the chin, which lengthens the back of the neck muscles. So all of these three diaphragms, your throat, vocal diaphragm, your Uddiyana bandha, your respiratory diaphragm, and your pelvic diaphragm, your mula band, they work as a pressurized system internally. So we can use those diaphragms as support. So we're thinking about those internal systems of support and the feet. So quite a lot of work into the feet today, and hopefully that'll feel really lovely. And some balancing postures amongst other things. So if you would like to come to an easy cross-legged position, no rush at all. We can come to sit on some padding if you'd like. Now it's up to you to whether you want to start in a kneeling position. And actually, I recommend kneeling first of all, because if the knees are happy to do so and you can create as much padding as you like, this can be a really nice position. If you can, happily splay the feet out to the sides. And a little block or something is always a good thing, just to give your knees the space. If your knees are going, hang on, I don't like this. Use some height. How are you feeling there? Your feet happy to spread. Sometimes that can be quite a strong movement. And if you can you get hold of your feet? If your feet are happy to spread alongside the buttocks, can you press into the arches of the foot? So you've got the inner arch, which is the inside of the foot, the medial arch, which is the midline. Can you massage into those areas of the foot? Now this can feel really tender, or it can feel really lovely. How does that feel? And you can massage down into the base of the toes, spreading out around the toe joint. So if you can reach the feet in that way, that can feel really lovely. We can also bring the hands into a ball, and clasp the hands, and then put the knuckles into the base of the foot there. So a little bit of self-massage. And there are often areas that feel really quite sort of achy, and other areas that really want that attention. And just notice that. Maybe you can't feel anything in your feet. It's going to vary from day to day, depending on what you've been doing, shoes you've been wearing. Super. And then we're going to move ourselves into a position where the feet come around the front. And come into Baddha Konasana, cobbler's pose, also known as butterfly. So give yourself a bit of a wiggle, and this is where the height is really good, because you can wiggle onto the front of your mats or your blanket or your block, and give yourself some space to allow for the pelvis to come into an anterior tilt. So you give yourself better posture. And then bring your feet into a little book. And you can again really pay attention to how your feet are and what's occurring with your feet, looking at the shape of your feet and noticing this arch, transverse arch, that's going to be variable for all of us. And the feet, when we are born, are in flexion. It's only within the process, if you think about toddlers walking and the way that they explore the world, that arch is created. So give yourself a lovely massage, maybe starting at the base of the heel and up along the arch to the big toe, the base of the big toe. So that area there is connected with the spine. And then if you follow the pad of the toe around to the little toes, you've got the lung area around there, pressing into there, just noticing how that feels. Feels quite free and easy for me. How is that for you? Really smudge into that area. You've got the heart below the second toe, next to the big toe. And interestingly enough, you have the diaphragm. So the respiratory diaphragm is along this area of the foot. So can you press into that and think about broadening that area of the foot in response to this notion that we spoke about 2 weeks ago, the broadening of the respiratory diaphragm. And you can always lift the foot up to reach into that area. And if you've gone through one side of the foot, come to the other. So there's no exact rules here. Just feeling into the feet. Thinking about that sense of broadening across the foot. Lovely. And then bring the feet back together again and just wing out the knees slightly to feel into the hips. How are your hips this morning? Not forcing them at all. Lovely. And then as we were focused on the respiratory diaphragm on the base of the toes, I want you to bring your attention into your breath and your diaphragmatic breathing. So if this is comfortable, you can stay here. Otherwise, you can just come into a cross-legged position if that takes any strain off. So we're remembering that with our diaphragmatic breathing, as we're inhaling, the cavity is increased and we're expanding and widening around the rib cage. On the exhalation, coming into your nasal breathing here. Oh, hang on a second. Sorry, lovely. It locks itself. Do come in. Get yourself comfortable. So with the inhalation, the diaphragm draws down, widens, the rib cage expands. Inhaling through the nostrils here. With an exhalation, the diaphragm arches, the cavity is reduced, there's a sense of drawing in. See if you can touch into this sense of the breath. Sometimes it can feel quite subtle. And if you really bring yourself into that Uddiyana, or rather Ujjayi breath, ocean breath, where you can hear the breath within the throat. Widening, expanding on the inhalation, and drawing inwards on the exhalation. So our ocean breath here, with a slight tightening around the glottis at the back of the throat. Cavity expands and widens, and with the exhalation, cavity reduces. You draw inwards. So with that sense of widening on the inhalation, we allow for that expansion to come about, and we allow for the reduction of the cavity on the exhalation. Lovely. So if you're in your Baddha Konasana, you can come into your easy cross-legged position. We're going to come into our lateral extension. So bring the left arm down to the side, lifting up through the right, lifting and lengthening through that seam of the body before we release over to the side. Maybe the gaze and the drishti comes up towards the ceiling. Inhaling, expanding and widening here. Exhaling, drawing in. Make sure that sitting bone is surrounded. There's always a temptation for my sitting bone to want to lift. Breathing into the side of the rib cage here, noticing how the shoulder feels. See if you can drop the shoulder into the shoulder socket. Lovely. Inhaling and exhaling. On your next inhalation, lifting up through the body here, dropping the right arm. Inhale through the left. Before dropping over to the other side, maybe gaze comes up towards the ceiling. Breathing along the side seam of the body, inhaling, feeling that rib cage really open up, the intercostals lengthen. On the exhalation, drawing inwards, inhaling, as though there's a balloon inside your rib cage. Exhaling, dropping the arm into the shoulder, see if you can release that area away from the ear. Inhaling, lifting the right arm up alongside the left, and we're going to rotate through the thoracic, so through the midsection of the spine to come to the left side of the body, gazing just down to the corner of the mat. Inhaling, lengthening through the spine, exhaling, releasing, inhaling, exhaling, inhaling, exhaling, and inhale, arms come up overhead through the midline, really lengthen up along the serratus anterior under the armpits, and rotate to the right side, and the hands just drop down. So you might have the left hand on the left knee, the right hand behind the buttocks. Inhaling, lengthening that spine, drawing up through the breastbone. Exhaling and rotate. The gaze of the drishti drops down alongside you. Inhaling and exhaling. Inhaling and exhaling. Inhale, lift the arms up over the head, grounding down through the sitting bones. And exhale, we're going to come into a lovely forward fold. So maybe you come down onto the elbows, just feeling to the hips here, wiggle a little, exhaling, releasing into the hips, inhaling, and exhaling. Inhale, lift yourselves up to an upright position, and we're going to drop the left ear to the left shoulder. Lovely. Really keep that left shoulder down. It's always going to want to reduce that space from A to B. And lengthen the right arm out alongside you. So sometimes it can be helpful to just nod the head forwards and backwards to really feel into the sternomastoid. We hold a lot of tension within the shoulders and the neck region, as we do in the hips. And then if you want to, you can bring the hand alongside the head and just gently place the hand on the side of the forehead here. Exploring that movement, tilting the chin inwards and rolling outwards. Lovely. Releasing the jaw here. And let go of the hand. Bring that head up to the midline and drop over to the other side. So you'll notice that one side feels different to the other, perhaps. The right ear comes down to the right shoulder. Extend the arm alongside. tilting the head forwards and backwards. How is that area for you today? And then if you want to, you can lift the hand up overhead. Just gently place it on the side. Rocking, breathing. And coming back to your Ujjayi breath, your ocean breath. Lovely. And dropping the hand, bring that down alongside. Now we're going to lift the left leg up first and do something called cradle the baby. So this may or may not feel okay for you this morning. So how does it feel to bring the hand into the elbow? It might feel really tight. Now you can always put the foot into the hand and do it in a gentler sense, okay? So we're just trying to create some space and some movement in the hips. And that movement could be really small, or you might be swinging away like you're rocking a baby, literally. So just notice how that is on this side. Breathing, noticing how your jaw feels, releasing around the facial muscles, and we're going to drop that side and come to the other. So it's either foot in your hand, and that can be lovely actually to create some space, or you can explore how it feels to put the foot in the elbow crease. That can feel a bit stronger actually. So just relaxing into this position and make yourself as comfortable as you can. Lovely. Super. And then we're going to bring the hand underneath the knee here. So it's not just to put your arm underneath actually for a foot crank. We're just going to straighten the leg out. Exploring the knee here. How's your knee today? So you can put your hand onto your wrist or you can wrap it around the elbow. Super. And then as you straighten the leg, we're going to rotate the ankle. So the leg doesn't need to be very straight. My knee's bent here. However you can find comfort. Rotating in one direction, then the other direction. Waking up those ankles. So you want the energy to flow really freely through the ankles into the feet here. Lovely. And release. Drop that foot down. We'll come to the other side. So however you've clasped the arms, so you might want to explore how it feels to wrap them around the elbows if you prefer. And we're going to crank the knee. Unfortunate term, really. So we're just bending, straightening the leg here. How does that feel? And then as you straighten your leg, I'm going to rotate at the ankle. So the knees have a slight rotation in them, but they're not really designed for twisting, as we all know. But if we can create a sense of stability and support within the feet and the ankles, we can protect the knees, and then opposite direction. Really spreading through the feet here. Lovely. And release. Okie dokes. So we're going to come into an almost crawling position. So swivel yourselves around and come into your all fours. First of all, we're going to be crawling backwards and forwards on our mat. Okay, so I want you to mainly focus on the toes being spread underneath the foot here, as that's one of our main focuses today. So we're exploring what it feels like, and it's probably not that familiar actually. Who's been crawling along their floor recently? Probably none of us. And you can explore how this feels by bringing the hand to the knee. So if you want to create more structure with your crawl, and if you think about it, the amount of different types of crawls that there are, well, there must be endless. So if you bring your knee to your hand, that's one way of doing it. But our main focus is broadening around the feet. And then you have the option, as you come forwards next time, of bringing your knee to your elbow. How does that feel? To bring your knee to your elbow. So there's no right or wrong way here. This is really an exploration, bit of play. and really increasing those neurosynapses in movements that we don't do anymore. Super. And then we're going to come up onto our feet. So think about coming onto the ball of your toes and then maybe a flat foot at the front. And we're going to be crawling through our feet in this fashion. Now, I'd love to encourage you to come off your mats, but it's probably best not to. If we were outside, we could really go for this. So you're spreading, your main intention here is to spread through the toes. Now, how does that feel in your hips? Lovely. And then to stop, come to somewhere in the middle of your mat with one foot in front of the other and the knee in a line with the heel. So it's almost like a runner's start. And the hands come alongside the body. So notice how that is within your front foot and obviously within your back foot with the toes spread underneath. Can you find a sense of comfort and ease within this position? Breathing and looking down just in front of the foot, about a foot in front of the foot. And we're going to lift up so the knee comes off the ground and come into a position where the knees are almost straight, but not completely. The front knee can be bent and then come down again. So you might want to create more space in between the feet. So front and back foot. Now, can you feel a sense of lengthening along the back of the legs as you open up here and bring the buttocks off the floor? Breathing into this space. And just moving slowly here, lifting up, the buttocks come up towards the ceiling, looking down at the foot. Lovely. And come down again. Great. And we're going to come to the other side. So bring your knees together in a kneeling position. Touch base with your broken toe Vajrasana for a moment. So you've got the feet spread nice and wide. Little pinky toes spread out. How does that feel? Sinking the weight into the feet here, into the buttocks. And then we're going to swap sides. So you want the opposite side to come up alongside that front knee. Lovely. And how does that feel? And if you want to, with your hands, if you want to create a greater sense of support, you can bend the fingers and spread out the thumb. And sometimes that can be nice and secure. That's an option. And then lift through the buttocks and come into your Parsvottanasana and then come down. And let's exhale as we lift hips off the ground. And inhale as we come back down again. Try and come into the most smooth movement that you can here. How are your knees? And back down again. One more. Coming up, feeling that sort of extension along the back of the legs and the hamstrings. Gazing down at the front foot. And come back down again. And then we're going to bring the knees together and come into our all fours position. Now, here's an option for you to spread the feet in the opposite direction if you want to. So you've got the tops of the foot flattening against the ground. We're going to get our hands into a little ball and massage into the base of the toe. So the big toe joint, maybe up into the arch. Give that area some attention. Lovely. Breathing. And come forward. So we're going to come into our wristing, our clock wrists. So if you want to tuck the toes under again, absolutely feel free to do so. Bring the hands into your neutral position, spreading through the thumb and the little finger, pressing down through the tips of the fingers so you get that sort of suctioning of the hand, and then spiral the hands to the outside of the mat. Rocking from side to side and really exploring the tiny little muscles that articulate the hands, feeling into either side here. Maybe if you rock into one side and figure of 8 into the other, there's movement here. Lovely. And then spiral the fingers all the way around so they're meeting in the middle of the mat. They're pointing together, spiraling and feeling into the hands this way around. And then we spiral the fingers back towards the knees. And the hands can come really close to the knees. And if you are slightly hypermobile, don't go too far with this. Easing into the muscles. They get so tight with RSI. Breathing and flipping the hands upside down, which is like Marmite. You either love it or you hate it. Notice how this feels. Spreading through that little finger and the thumbs. Lovely. And then bring the hands back to their neutral position. Be careful here because they've moved around quite a lot. Pressing down through the fingers here. Get the knees so they're directly under the hip points. Flatten the feet against the floor. Coming into your tabletop. Feeling into that space between the sacrum and the back of the head. And we're going to come into our cat-cow. So with an exhalation, allow for the pelvis to tilt and the head to dangle towards the mat. Respiratory diaphragm arches to make space for the flexion. Then we're going to inhale to neutral and exhale to a slight extension. And the gaze comes to the front of the mat. Inhale to neutral, exhale to flexion. And we come into a slow flow within your own breath here. Inhale to neutral, exhale, coming into your extension. Allow for that movement to really come about around the ribcage. So like cats, we can move between these expressions of the spine with a sense of fluidity. And after your next flexion, so your scared cat, allow for the head to dangle really heavy, so completely let go of the heavy head. Come back to your neutral. And we're going to come to bird dog. So lifting up through the right arm and the left knee, come into your vertical motion, stretching out through the arm, through the middle finger and the base of the toes. Lovely. Breathing and drawing in around the abdomen in order to create greater stability. Breathe and release. On the exhalation, bring the hand and knee down. Inhale and come to the other side. Extending along through that middle finger. Reach and the base of the toes. Reach. Breathe. Lovely. And release. Super. Now we're going to try that with our arms in a forearm stand. So let's see how that feels today. So we're coming down into almost sphinx-like position. To make sure that we've got the positioning for our bodies right, bring the hand to the upper arm, wrap the hands to make sure the elbows are closer in enough. And then we can bring the hands back down. So we're spreading down through those fingers. Keep the knees so they're hip width apart. Make sure that we're not collapsing within the lumbar. So we're going to be inhaling and reaching as we do in bird dog. Slightly different orientation here. Notice what's changing here. This is going to feel different. Different muscles will be working in different ways. Gazing down in front of you on the mat. Breathing. Knowing that you don't need to hold this. If you begin to shake, it's possibly become too effortful, and draw the limbs back. Coming back to our neutral and reaching through the left arm and the right leg, keeping the right hip point down, breathing down through. So we've got middle finger, base of the toe joint, extending. Lovely. And come back. Super. So we're going to come back onto our hands now and lift up through the right leg. So draw the knee in towards the elbow and spiral through the hip point, bending the knee waking up the toes here. So your circles may be small and spiraling into a larger circle. If you want to exhale the knee in towards the body and inhale out, feeling the glutes working here. Inhaling and exhaling. One more spiral. And release the knee back down. Come back to an alignment that feels fairly neutral before you draw the left knee in on the exhalation and scoop round. Really waking up those feet, spreading the toes as wide as can be. And you can allow for the energy to really run down through into the extremities when we work in this way. Scooping. So if you've worked in one direction, you can come back in the other direction. Breathing. And after the next circle, dropping the knee. And if you needed to come back in the other direction, the other side, this is a good opportunity to do so. So if you need to bring the knee forwards, I've got my monitor very much in the way, so you have to excuse my strange position. Breathing into this. Lovely. And then drop the knee, bring the hips back, come onto the elbows and bring the hands up to the side of the face. So we're going to come into Brahmari breath. So in terms of the diaphragm, we're coming to the end of an exhalation. The diaphragm is going to lift, the cavity is going to reduce. So within Brahmari, it's an elongated exhale with a hum. So we'll do 3 of these. Inhaling and remembering the hands can come to the sides of the ears and you can press in with the thumb if that is preferable to you. Inhaling, cover the ears. At the end of the hum, inhale. Inhale. Number 3. At the end of your Brahmari, you can bring the hands alongside the legs and come into a tiny little child's pose. Maybe the forehead drops down to the ground, or you can use some padding to bring the ground up to the forehead. Releasing and sinking down. So try and let go of any muscular effort here. And just practice noticing whether there are any regions that are holding. Really making use of gravity here. And then extend the arms alongside the body. You might want to widen out the knees to create some more space. And sink down so the armpits open, the serratus anterior lengthens. And we're going to creep the hands over to the left side of the body. So crawling the hands over to the left side of the mat. Perhaps the right hand comes to clasp on top of the left and sink down, release into the side of the body here. Inhaling, widening and broadening around the ribcage. Exhaling. Inhaling. Exhaling. Crawl the hands to the midline and do the same coming over to the opposite side. So maybe the left hand comes on top of the right and open along this seam of the body. Inhaling.
Exhaling. Inhaling. Exhaling. And then creep the hands back through center. Bring the hands to the outer sides of the mat. Tuck the toes under, and we're going to prepare to come into downward dog. So looking down at the mat here and just bringing the hands slightly closer in to prepare for your dog today. And as we take the weight into the legs, the knees raise off the ground and the head becomes nice and heavy as we come up into an almost mongrel dog today. So we're keeping the knees nice and bent. The arms are wide. And I invite you to spread your feet out so they're coming to the outer edges of the mat here. So we're really wide, bending the knees, and allow for the spine to open, swaying from side to side. And you can explore coming into your pedaling feet. So bending one knee, coming up onto the toes, straightening the other leg and coming across. So we're pedaling in and out. How do your feet feel here? Lovely. And then we're going to explore lifting. So we're taking our weight into 3 points of contact with the ground here. So maybe the heels are down. Lift one leg up towards the ceiling. Don't worry about the hips so much. Explore how this is. And if you want to come into your scorpion, you can bend the knee and look under the elbow before we draw the knee to the front of the mat in between their feet. We're going to come into a low lunge. So if you need to get hold of the foot to bring it forwards, that's absolutely fine. And indeed, you can come into this position through all fours. The back knee is going to be dropping down and the top of the foot flattening against the floor. So within our low lunge, we create this really lovely wide base of support between the front heel and the back knee. So some of you might want to spread the foot further forwards. We're going to release the front of the hip down as much as we can. Allow for that sense of release within the hip flexor. And we're going to draw and roll onto the heel here to come into your Hanuman stretch, the monkey god. The hands are resting alongside the shin. Don't feel like the knee needs to straighten and just sink the head down to the front of the mat. Inhale, rock forwards into your low lunge. So we're coming to the front foot here and rocking forwards. Exhale, rolling onto the heel, coming into Hanuman. Releasing into this space. And inhale to come forwards. Exhale to rock back. This time as we rock forwards, bring the arms up alongside the body and come into cactus arms. How does that feel? So you've got a bend at the elbows, sinking down through the hips, the hands facing forwards, and really pressing down through that front leg. Let's come into Samasana, lion's breath. So this is the pranayama where we stick our tongue out and exhale. So inhaling. And an opportunity to do that again. So inhale. Bring the hands down alongside the foot. Tuck the toes under to come into a high lunge. Really feeling through the back toes here in your high lunge. Lovely. And then we're going to bring that lower knee down. Scoop the foot behind and come into downward dog. So tuck the toes under, lift up through the hips. And we can spread the feet wide here to come into our mongrel dog. Bending the knees to make sure there's enough space for the spine to lengthen. And explore pedaling through the feet, lifting up from one side to the next. So as we lift one heel, the other drops. And we're going to be lifting through the opposite side now. So left leg extends up towards the ceiling. And if you want to bend the knee and come into scorpion, where the knee drops over to the other side and you look under the left elbow, explore how that feels, that opening alongside the body before drawing the knee in towards chest, coming into a low lunge through the other side. So if you need to bring the foot forwards between the hands, we can drop the back knee and flatten the foot. Super. And if you want to bring some more space between the heel and the knee, you can make that adjustment. So we're going to exhale and come into your Hanuman stretch, rocking along the heel here, saying hello to the hamstrings, because they'll definitely be saying hello to you. And rock forwards. Allow for the hip flexors to open. So with an exhale, we're rocking into Hanuman. And you can be here as long as you like. But you also might just want to rock and roll through those points of contact. And rolling back on the heel. Breathing along the back length of the legs. And coming back into your low lunge. If you're in your low lunge, we ground down through the front foot and bring the hands into cactus. Lifting up through the legs here, so the legs are strong. Relax the shoulders, and the hands are facing to the front. Inhaling through the nostrils. Exhaling, and we'll come into Samasana lion's breath. Inhaling. Release the tongue. And we'll do that one more time. Inhaling. Bring the hands down alongside the foot. Tuck the toes under. Come into a high lunge. Really feeling into the back foot here. How does that feel today? Lovely. And then we're going to bring the knee in towards the front foot here. So again, we're coming into our runner's position. And in a similar fashion to as we did earlier, we're coming up into Virabhadrasana 1, which is our warrior 1 position. So if you just watch me one time. So we're coming up into warrior 1, but we've got the front knee bent. The hips are like lights on the front of a car, and we lift. Okay? And then we can come back down again. So you might want to do that in a more of a flowing movement, but I think it's helpful to have it reduced down into legs and then upper body. Okay, so in our Virabhadrasana 1, the front leg is bent, the back leg is straight, and you can draw the body weight up. So making sure that you've got enough of a base of support. So within your Virabhadrasana 1, you can have the back heel off the ground, if that's preferable, or you can draw the heel down, and the angle of the foot is about 30, 45 degrees, depending on what your hips need. And then you lift your arms up into cactus today. And then we close and draw ourselves back down again. So it's a bit like being a robot. So we're kind of closing ourselves down into this runner's position, taking the weight into the back foot and lifting. That front knee is bent, drawing the weight up, bringing the arms into cactus. Flowing through these points, exhaling as we draw back down again. How does that feel? So the legs are working here. And then one more time, coming up. Cactus arms. And then with this back foot here, let's see how this goes. This might be interesting. We're going to take the weight into the front foot and then come onto the front of the top of the foot here. Now, can we roll in circles? And trust me, this is going to be weird because your body is going to be mapping this movement going, what is this? What is this? What's going on? There may be a certain, you can hold on to a wall. So those of you who are next to a wall, please do. But we're exploring rolling into the big toe joint. How does that feel? Do hold on to walls.
and rolling back in the other direction. So you're taking a lot of weight into the front leg here. It's a peculiar one. My tutor showed me this years ago and I was like, I've never done that before. It's amazing. And then close down and come back into your runners. Super. Now we're going to drop the knee and come to the other side. So bringing that foot alongside the front of the knee. Tucking the toes of the back leg under. And we're coming into a similar movement. So we open up. The front knee is bent. You can explore bringing the heel down if that's your preference, or you can have the heel up off the ground. And then you can lift the torso into a cactus. Breathing and exhaling as we draw ourselves down again. So fluidity of movement is really key here. If you can touch into something that works for you. Now, if you're finding your base of support is a bit wobbly, know that you can bring your leg and your knee apart so you can widen the base of support. Take up space. As we can in our yoga practice, we can take up as much space as we really like. And then closing down on the exhalation. Lifting up with no rush at all, coming into your own slow flow here. Just notice when your foot decides to dismount itself like mine just did. So balance is a process where these small muscles in the foot and the ankles and the legs are constantly adjusting themselves. Closing down. And you might be feeling that your legs are working here. Lifting up this one last time to come into the funky back roll of the foot. Relaxing the shoulders in your cactus. Bringing the weight into that front foot is really key. And then roll. And I love doing things like this because they really do. I do find my brain really sort of having to work in a slightly different way because it doesn't come naturally. Because there's no point in life where your body really requires you to roll on top of the foot. So it's meant to feel abnormal. Rolling one way and the other. Super. And then we're going to do very simple, slow movement, drawing our foot forward to meet the other foot at the front of the mat to come into Tadasana. Hooray, we made it. So feet hip width apart, hands down to the side, shoulders relaxed. And when we're in our Tadasana, we really are touching base with the feet here. And that lovely snowshoe of connective tissue, fascia, the plantar fascia, all alongside the base of the foot here. And then underneath that plantar fascia, we've got lots of different muscles that are working. So we're trying to explore the base of the toe joint and the outer pinky toe here by lifting up the heels, coming onto the toes, keep that plumb line, and then draw the heels down and lift up the toes. When you lift up the toes, say hello to them, spread them nice and wide. Widen around the base of the foot, that area of the foot that I mentioned at the beginning of the class where the diaphragm sits. And then before rocking onto the toes, try and spread the toes as wide as possible to come up, heels off the ground. Excuse my phone, or whoever's phone that is. And then roll onto the heels. Super. When you spread those toes, see if you can bring the little pinky toe down, then the second toe, the third toe, the fourth toe, and the big toe. And you might notice there's one foot that's more happy to do that than the other, and it may be the preference that you have with which side you use when you're writing. So for instance, I know that my right foot is happy to act, my left foot's a bit lazy, doesn't really want to move. And you can change that. That's to do with neuroplasticity. So the more you do things, the more you intend movements to take place, the more the mapping of the movement takes place within the brain, and it changes the way the brain works. So it's interesting. So lifting up the toes, bringing them back down onto the mat and lifting up through the heels. Testing your balance here. And drop down. The next time we bring the heels down, we're going to bend the knees and come into Utkatasana. Bringing the tailbone down, lifting up through the arms, keeping those shoulders moving away from the ears, drawing the arms into the shoulder sockets, coming down. And then we're going to ski Sunday up onto the toes, coming into Pencil Tadasana. Inhaling and reaching. And swoop the arms down, coming into the heels. So we've got the heel of the foot, the calcaneus of the foot, the heel of the pelvis, the sacrum, and you've also got the heel of the head. So when we're in this position, we're thinking about the line between the three heels of the body, tucking the chin in slightly, and then inhale up to Pencil Tadasana. Exhale down into Utkatasana, bending those knees. And lift up into your pencil. One last time. Reaching up towards the ceiling with middle fingers. Grounding down through the base of the toe. And release. Now this time we're coming into Virabhadrasana 3. So, taking the weight into the right leg first of all, really noticing those 4 points of contact, big toe, little toe, back of the heels. And we're going to explore coming into Virabhadrasana 3. So I really recommend having the arms alongside the hips to open up around the shoulders. And your Virabhadrasana 3, or your aeroplane, may be playing with just foot coming off the floor, or you may be coming into a more angular position. And just work between those points. So it's really just for you to work within your balance today. And know that your balance is always going to vary. If you breathe into your center point, your navel region, and drop that point within the body, you're going to have a more secure sense of balance. So really dropping the mind into the pelvis even if you can. And the leg is working hard here. So the next time you come out of your Virabhadrasana 3, you can bend the knee and draw the knee up towards chest. Breathing. Lovely. And we're going to come straight into Vrksasana on this side. Now, you do have the option of dropping the foot. My ankle, I don't know about yours, is working really hard. So if you want to put the foot down, the left foot, we're just going to rotate the right foot. Has taken a lot of weight there. Super. And then we'll come into our Vrksasana. So is everyone's ankle happy to do right side, although the right side's been working really hard? If not, we can come to the other side. So grounding down through the right, draw the knee up to the side, come into the thigh. Come into a position that feels nice and stable. And that indeed can be here. That can feel really lovely. Bringing the hands through the midline in Anjali Mudra. Relax the shoulders. An opportunity to come back to the breath, Ujjayi breath. Inhaling, allowing for the diaphragm to widen. Exhaling, drawing inwards. And then if you're happy and feeling stable, you can bring the hands up above the head and open out. As it's summer in our blooming tree. Noticing all those incremental changes taking place around the feet, the ankles. Breathing. And then bring the hands down through center. And bring the hands to the side and release the foot. So we're coming down to the left. So we're coming to Virabhadrasana 3. You'll notice one side of the body is feeling different to the other side, potentially. So we're going to come into the left. So So drawing our foot off the ground, the arms come alongside the hip points. We're going to come into Virabhadrasana 3. Stretching the leg out. Now, if it's more helpful actually to not think about just coming directly into that shape, but lifting the foot off the ground. Exploring your balance here today. And bending the knee can help support that movement. So the ankle is working to support the body here as we come into Virabhadrasana 3. And on the next drawing in movement, we're going to bring the knee into center and draw that knee up into the chest, feeling into that space. And then let's bring that right foot down and rotate the left foot. Super. Before grounding down through the left to come into tree on this side. So if you want to bring the foot into the thigh, that's fine. Or you can come into the shin, or you can come into the position around the base of the foot. Coming into that space that feels right for you. And know that your focal point or your drishti is really important for balance here. So if you can find a space where you can settle your vision, dropping down into the breath, just slow it all down. And once you find a sense of balance, bring the hands through Anjali Mudra. And then if you want to, you can bring the arms up through the midline and open up the hands. Breathing into the belly. Allow for the shoulders to roll away from the ears. Gazing onto a fixed point. Lovely, guys. Just relaxing into the Urdhva or tree. And then bringing the hands through the midline. Oh, I'm moving. And coming back down again. Super. So do any adjustments that you need to for your heels and your ankles here, because they have worked really hard this morning. Super. And we're going to come into goddess pose. So bring the legs wide. So the feet are in line with the knees when we bend the knees. So that can be in a wide angle stance, or you can come into a more, parallel position. And you want to feel like your tailbone can drop down. So the weight of your upper body sinks down into very strong and stable legs. Super. And your attention is almost on the outside of the foot here. Bringing the hands into cactus, spreading those fingers wide. Relaxing the shoulders. And we're going to inhale and lift the right heel off the ground. Exhale. Bring the heel down. Inhale, lift. Left heel off the ground. Exhale. Inhale. Right heel. And drop. Inhale. Left heel. And drop. Sink that tailbone down. Even more so. And then release yourselves up. So we're going to swivel to the front of the mat, come into Uttasana, forward fold, let the top of the body dangle down freely. Lovely. And then bring the hands down by the sides of the feet by bending the knees and creep the legs back into your downward dog. Coming into your dogs. Lovely. And we're going to hinge forwards into an almost plank movement. So you might want to spread the feet behind. So you come in this lovely plank angle position to make our way down into our fronts. So that may be knees, chest, chin with alignment with the elbows bent, or you can chaturanga down. Chest comes down onto the floor, flattening the feet alongside the mat. And we're going to inhale with the hands underneath the elbows, or these shoulders, looking down at the front of the mat, coming into Bhujangasana, Cobra. Breathing and releasing on the exhalation. One more time to come up into Cobra. So the hands are underneath the shoulders. Lift. So you come into your spinal extension, pressing down through fronts of the feet and the pelvis. Lovely. One more time. Before dropping ourselves down and pressing down through the hands to come back into your downward dog, pressing through the hands, tucking the toes under, lifting up into downward dog. So the feet are spread and the heels are almost coming out to the outer edges of the mat. So we're just going to touch base with the pelvic diaphragm. Thinking about the pelvic diaphragm here as we breathe. As you exhale, there may be a sense of a palpable lift. On an inhale, a sense of relaxation around the pelvic diaphragm. And you can enhance this. So with an inhale, relaxing pelvic diaphragm. With an exhale, a sense of drawing inwards. And then just lift generally around the area of the body and bring your attention up to around the abdomen area. With an exhalation, allow for the abdomen to draw up into the rib cage. Inhale, allow for a softening of the belly. Exhale, a sense of lengthening between the pelvis and the shoulder blades. And then drawing your attention up to the vocal diaphragm, I want you to really relax the head with the chin tucked in, lengthening the back of the neck muscles. Lovely. And we're just going to bring the knees forwards and come to sit on our buttocks. So coming to sit down on our buttocks now into Janusarasana. So straighten the right leg in front of you. The left leg bends and you can bring the sole of the foot to the inside of the leg and swivel the pelvis so it's facing that front foot. So we're going to come into a forward fold, just draping the breastbone over the front of the leg here to calm the nervous system. And the front knee, the straightened knee, doesn't need to be locked into a straight position. It can be helpful to have a sense of a bend. Exhaling and releasing the front of the body over that leg. Spreading those toes nice and wide up towards the ceiling. Breathing from the back of the head down alongside the spine, down along the buttocks and along the outer back line of the leg to the base of the foot, the plantar fascia. And as you rest and exhale and release here, maybe we'll sink further over the leg. And on your next inhalation, release the body up. And we're going to swap sides. So lengthening the left leg now, twinkling those toes up towards the ceiling, bending the right leg so the foot comes to the inside of the leg and draping the torso over. Noticing if there's a shift as we come to one side from the other. And as you release, and as you exhale, let go around the jaw. And perhaps that connective tissue from the base of the foot that runs along the back of the heel, the back of the legs, around the back of the buttocks, and all the way up the back of the spine to the top of the head and the crown, lengthens. Let the nervous system calm here. And on your next inhalation, Release yourselves up. Bring both feet into Baddha Konasana as we started in this fashion, and come into your forward fold here, dropping the head and the gaze towards the feet. And for our inversion today, we have two choices. So if you want to come into a lesser inversion on your backs in Dvipadapitham on the mat, you can do that, or we can come up against the wall. So inhaling and releasing the head and the spine. So our two options, if we want to come into our inversion on the floor in this position, we can do that, or we can bring ourselves straight up against the wall. You've also got the option of starting on the floor and coming to the wall. And because all three of you have come up against the wall, you know what that feels like. So if we're doing it on the floor, make sure the feet are flattened against the mat, the shoulders coming down, and then we're going to release the hips up and come into a bridge pose. And as we do that action, we notice the pelvic diaphragm perhaps drawing up. And then as we rock and roll all the vertebrae down onto the mat, notice how the pelvic diaphragm releases as we roll over onto the tailbone. So it's exploring the movement, but with a sense of pelvic diaphragm awareness. And if it's the case that your body is doing something other, then follow that. Follow that sense of what is occurring. Pay attention to the internal processes. And we're flowing in between those points, allowing for the vertebra to iron itself out. And then when you do get your pelvis back down again, rolling onto tailbone and creating that small arch around the lumbar, perhaps the pelvic diaphragm releases before rolling back along the sacrum and rolling the spine off the ground, lifting the hips up towards the ceiling. And I'll give you the option, if you feel energetically like you want to bring the hands together, shoulders draw in, and lift into Setu Bandhasana. So the hands are clasped together underneath the buttocks, and we're lifting the hips up towards the ceiling. And then release and draw the spine down. And you can either do that 2 more times, or you can come to the wall. So we'll just cover the wall inversion again. So if you did want to come up to the wall, we'd be flattening the mat, moving it around to the angle where it's directed against the wall. And if you do have some padding or a blanket or anything, I really recommend bringing that underneath the body, like this. So you want a little bit of space between buttocks and body, and then we have the opportunity as we swivel buttocks in towards the wall. So if you can get your feet underneath the bar and press all of those 4 points of contact, then that's probably slightly better than trying to work with the bar. Although if you need to, that's absolutely fine. And if you've used the padding underneath the shoulders, the head just drops off the edge of the padding. The arms run alongside the body. And if you're working with the shoulder stand inversion, supported against the wall, we're imagining that we're drawing the feet. So we're drawing and dragging the feet down the wall. It's a dragging action. And the response is an automatic lift the pelvis. And you get to a space that feels hammocky around the front of the belly. as you lift, and the pelvis responds by drawing up. And whatever you do, don't take that so far that it goes into the neck. The lovely thing about doing it against the wall is that it really helps you feel into the spine, but it also creates the support to come into the position that we would come into with our shoulder stand without that sense of having to sort of swing yourself up. So I'll come here and just have a look. And indeed, if you want to come into legs up the wall, that is also good. And when you do draw yourself into your shoulder stand, you may notice a sense of drawing upwards with the pelvic diaphragm as you draw up. How does that pelvic diaphragm respond? And then roll the vertebra all the way down again. And then to prep ourselves to come into Shavasana, if you want to come into your position up against the wall and would rather not move, that's absolutely fine. Otherwise, if you've come into a sense of an inversion, I invite you to bring your knees wide and open them up to the side and come into your windscreen. So the left knee drops down into the left hand. And then you roll across the spine and the right knee drops over to the right hand. Rolling from left to right side of the pelvis. Knees drop over to left. Rolling over to the right, knees drop over to the right side. And then extending the limbs out as you would, as though you're a single cell organism, and these are your limbs extending, so the femurs roll out of the hip sockets, the arms roll out of the shoulder sockets, and you come into a Shavasana that suits you today. To consolidate your practice, coming into a symmetrical place. Making any adjustments that you need. You need to bend the knees and lift the hips. Explore how that changes things, particularly if you have a very busy lumbar. So you can draw the pelvis off the ground and drop it back down again. Releasing that region of the body. Bending the legs in this way just reduces the lever. And you can ground down through the elbows, lifting up through the thoracic, through the rib cage, drawing the shoulder blades together and release the shoulders. And with the neck, you can bring the hands to the base of the neck here, spreading, stroking along that heel of the skull there, the occipital ridge, drawing the hands up towards the top of the head, dropping the back of the skull down, thereby lengthening the back of the neck. The chin tucks in and release. So what can you let go of in this corpse pose here, this Shavasana? Your relaxation. You allow for the body to consolidate the practice and absorb, or indeed release anything that it doesn't need. And I'm just briefly going to speak a little about the toes, but indeed you can let my words just roll over you. The distal ends of the toes are like insect antennae. They help with postural balance, spatial orientation, and navigation. So a lot of the movements that we've practiced in today's session focus on broadening the webbing between the metatarsals. So we're working with actively opening the toes and the webbing between the toes. So the focus is almost to do the opposite of what our shoes train our feet to do, which is articulate the toes by lifting and spreading them as if opening an oriental flat fan. And interesting enough, the movement of the inner heel remotely influences the bioenergetics of the pelvic diaphragm, the Muller band. So a practice that you can do at home, off the mat, is simply to walk with bare feet. Really pay attention to the arch, to the spread of the toes, and that sense of grounding and support that our feet give us in contact with the earth. And bringing your attention to your toes and your feet, beginning to wiggle those areas. Do roll over onto your right hand side at the end of the following sound. And pressing down with hands, coming into an upright position, maybe with the eyes closed at the end of the following. And if you prefer not to have the eyes closed, just gaze gently down to the floor in front of the mat. And the sense of softness and spaciousness around the eye sockets and around the jaw. And bringing the hands together at the heart space, just rubbing those to create some heat. And we're going to finish by palming the eye socket. So just bringing the base of the palm to the inside of the eye socket, the outside of the eye socket. And then you can draw those hands down as we did with our feet, if in the short supported shoulder stand, spreading the fingers wide and bringing those hands down through heart center. Bowing in acknowledgement of the space. And namaste.